Save the Semantics, episode 361. It is January 20th, 2026. My name is Myro. This is a podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Tuesday afternoon/evening. It's been a little bit of time. I always feel after taking a bit of a hiatus from recording, maybe about 2 weeks or so. I mean, I have gone in the past just long periods of time without recording anything, but I'd say over the last year or so I feel I've been pretty consistent about at least putting something out excuse me, every week or so. So it does feel kind of a bit of a departure whenever I'm not putting something out, just because this has been kind of a staple in terms of, something to do and a bit of a routine for myself. I think I've been pretty good about, and this is just based on kind of my wants of wanting to put stuff out, but I would say in 2025, I recorded a ton. I recorded more than once during a week and stuff. So this has probably been the longest amount of time since I haven't recorded something. So it feels a little kind of rusty to get back into it. And it's kind of funny too. I don't necessarily have like a lot to get back into, a lot to talk about, because I have been pretty out of commission for the last couple of weeks, for good reason. Mainly I was traveling and spending time with my partner for about a week and a half, 2 weeks or so. And I've also been starting to get ready for my move out to New York for my new job, which I just started today. So there's been a lot on my plate and a lot on my mind. So I just haven't had the chance to put anything out. And I did mention, I believe last time, or maybe the last 2 episodes ago or something like that I want to try to maybe film something, or record some type of a vlog or something like that, just to experiment with something a little different. I really haven't deviated too much from this format since I've created it just a long time ago. And so it might be worth, trying it out and putting something on YouTube. I did put out a couple of shorts, as I mentioned, a couple of food or drink reviews, nothing really significant there. So it might be worth just trying out, seeing if it's fun and if I enjoy the process at all. I really have not made videos in any way, shape, or form since, I don't know, high school, I think, when we made I think like a video project for some of our history classes. I think outside of that, it's been pretty bare bones, right? So I really haven't divulged into any type of filmmaking or anything like that. So this would be sort of new territory for myself, but it might be worth trying out and seeing if it's anything interesting, you know what I mean? I don't think the content that I put out is going to be anything significant or novel or anything like that, right? It would be a dime a dozen, right? A lot of people make a move and film it, so it's really not it's not a new concept by any means. But yeah, I thought it might be fun. So I'll see what I'm able to cobble up in terms of footage, and how much of it, how much work I want to actually put into editing and that kind of thing, because I know editing can take quite a bit of work, along with potentially using music and stuff. So I've contemplated that. I've definitely taken into account the amount of work it would take to actually put together something of a project, right? How long is it going to take to put together? I'm not sure, but I thought it might be just you know, worth trying. Me recording this is kind of a way to account for myself and to give myself some accountability and being like, hey, listen, if you said you're going to do it, you should try to do it. So hopefully this kind of pushes me in that direction of actually trying this out. Anyways, yeah, so a lot's been going on. I really have not been able to, or rather, I just haven't caught up on a lot of stuff, primarily basketball. I've just have not watched any basketball really for the last few weeks or so. So I've been pretty checked out on that end. I know a lot of things have happened since I last recorded, including the Trae Young trade, which I did want to talk about a little bit here. It's pretty dated at this point, but it seems like a really low, just like a low, return, especially on the Hawks end, right? I think everybody's sort of made note of that, and a pretty fair buy-in for a team like the Wizards, who have not really developed any potential star talent outside of maybe Alex Sarr, right? But that team is so young and still so raw that it might be beneficial to have someone like Trae Young, who is already an established player, to maybe guide this team in the direction of, getting out of a rebuild and becoming a bit more of a competitive team, right? They're still going to be picking a high draft pick in this year's lottery. If they hit big, maybe they get their superstar player in whoever they end up drafting, if they end up like in the top 3, which was something that they, I'm assuming they were hoping for in this past year's draft. And so maybe this adding one more piece to this, this kind of young core that they're developing will sort of aid along in that process of becoming a decent team again. You know what I mean? I think they have some good pieces. I mean, I've noted in the past that I do like some of their younger players. I like Alex Sarr. I've liked Bob Carrington, despite him being, somewhat inconsistent here and there, although he has kind of ramped it up a little bit over the past a little recent while. Bilal Coulibaly is a cool prospect, although, I don't know what is his offensive ceiling. I think that's kind of a bit of a issue for him. He's known to have a very high defensive ceiling, but offensively, it's just hasn't shown up yet. So yeah, I think they have some interesting pieces, and adding a Trae Young, not necessarily right now, because it seems like they're pretty much shutting him down for the season in a very obvious tanking method. But it could be something interesting. It could be something pretty interesting if they sort of continue in the direction that they have been. So something to keep an eye on. I know it's not exactly the most exciting thing, but to me, I think it's interesting to see the development of certain teams and how they've gotten to the point where they are. Unfortunate, some real unfortunate news. Again, I have not been really paying a lot of attention to basketball. I think the last time I really even watched the Warriors, they were around 500. And since then, they've been doing pretty well. I think they've gone about 11-2 since that point. So things have started to click. I have not been there to witness because of just, the things, just been busy with things and just haven't had the time to watch. But it feels that that momentum has kind of come to a screeching halt with Jimmy Butler's injury last night. I did not watch that game. They were playing Miami at home. He went down, and it's been reported that he will be out with ACL injury, out for the rest of the year. So there goes the season, right? There goes the season. There goes next year as well. It sucks. It sucks. I mean, I don't know what else to put it. That also impacts the team's ability to trade someone like Jonathan Kuminga, who does not have and does not seem to have a market in the trade market, or any value in the trade market. So it's a disaster. I don't know what the direction for this team is going to be. It's I don't know if Jimmy does end up coming back next season. He's going to be 37, coming off of an ACL injury. I just don't see it working out. You know what I mean? If they were going to make a push, it was going to be this year. I've said this since last year's postseason. I said this, since the beginning of this year's preseason. This was kind of the window. And I just don't know what the moves are that are available. I don't know if Kuminga is not going to be able to bring in anything, then I don't know what will. It feels like a kind of just a unmitigated disaster, and I don't really think there's a foolproof way to clear this, and it sucks. I have not really been super emotionally invested in this team during the course of this season, since they had their hot start again and then kind of fell back down to earth and hit 500, and then more recently have started to kind of pick up their stride. But because I haven't really been watching, I just have not really, I really haven't paid that much attention. But regardless of that, regardless of me just not really being super in on it, it just is, it's unfortunate. It kind of really takes the wind out of the sails of this season. Of course, I'm still going to watch what I can, but it really does just kind of feel kind of like a lost season. Really, it does. I don't know what the direction is going to be. Do they tank? What do they, I don't know. I mean, they're at a point where they are in playoff position right now, I think around the 7th seed. So if they can somehow continue to win without Jimmy, which is entirely possible, right? If they do have some easier schedules coming up later in the year, maybe they can take advantage of that. But I don't know. I'm feeling pretty pessimistic about it, to be honest. And I just think that it feels kind of, this is the close. This is just like the closing chapter. Maybe I said this before and they kind of came back with the Jimmy trade, but this really feels kind of like nail in the coffin for me. Maybe they can kind of continue to sort of work and just have, just continue with the Steph heliocentric offense and all that stuff. But I just think that's putting way too much on Steph once again. And I just don't really, we've seen what the results of that is. We've seen what it looks like when he has to be the one to carry the offense. It is putting up 50 balls. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work as a team concept. It doesn't work when you have personnel who are largely inconsistent in their roles. I know that certain players have been playing fairly well. I know Pods has been playing pretty well and stuff, but I just don't trust there to be that type of contribution in leading into the postseason, right? I mean, we're halfway through the season. It's still a long season. And I just don't think that, role players especially have their ebbs and flows, and that's especially the case for the Warriors, where it's like, oh, we're buying back into Podziemski, we're buying back into Moody, we're buying back into, I don't know, maybe Buddy Hield is on the upswing again. It just is not. It's just not sustainable, and it's just not. It doesn't feel good to kind of watch that right now. Maybe that just comes with being a mid-team right now. Maybe there is just too much attachment to kind of in the moment kind of feelings. You know what I mean? But I'm just looking at just looking at over the course of the season. We had another upwards trajectory, which is good. But I just don't really see this working out in the long term, right? So maybe it just comes down to enjoying games and not trying to think too much of the bigger picture. I think that's just kind of maybe what it comes down for myself, is not being so invested in what the end goal of this team is, because clearly there's not going to be this happy ending of sorts, or this this incredibly satisfying conclusion. We're just not going to get that. I think this is just sort of the point in which this team in this Curry era finally sort of fades away, and what the direction of this team is going to be afterwards remains to be kind of seen, right? I think the obvious thing is for there to be, to sell off assets and to tank, which I think is sort of an inevitability once Steph retires. I just don't know when that's going to be, because Steph is still playing at an insanely high level. He was just selected to the All-Star, the starting five of the All-Star, the Western All-Stars, which is incredible at his age. So he still has it, but we just know what the ceiling is with this team, him being kind of the primary and really only offensive hub. So I just don't, I think that I'm going to continue, or rather I'm going to further lower my expectations and simply just enjoy moments over the course of this season. Moments such as, the Warriors beating the Spurs earlier this season on that back-to-back, or some other moments where where Steph scored 50 points even despite a loss. Like there's, I don't know, I think there's things that you can maybe take away and still be fond of, you know what I mean? I think that as a fan base, you become incredibly, you really only look at the glass half empty, when in reality it's been an incredibly just historical run for this team and this franchise, in which most, if not all, other franchises will never get to experience. And so there's a bit of that humble pie that I think that you take. You just do. It's just like you can kind of, I don't know, I think that there is just this unsurmountable amount of success that this team has experienced over the course of the last 15 years or so, which has been incredible, right? But everything comes to an end, and I think that it's gonna get tough. I've said this before, but it's gonna get rough when things start to fade. There's gonna be new things in which you will have to cheer for as a fan, right? You just can't cheer for the same thing over and over again. It just eventually it comes to an end. So right now, I think you just have to enjoy this kind of twilight of this team and Steph's career. Enjoy individual moments and performances, but try not to expect too much from the rest of it, right? If they're able to squeeze in a playoff series, I'll be more than happy, right? In kind of the same way that they did last year. I thought that was a great result. I was very happy that they even managed to make it that far, getting past the Rockets, right? And I don't think they'll be able to do that this year, but they can still try. They can certainly try to do something, right? If that is there, then I'll be happy. That will make me very, very happy. But really outside of that, I just don't. I'm really not. There's not a lot. I think they had a good run, and it's coming to a close, unfortunately. It's just so devastating when it's injury based. It's always injuries, right? That's always just like the worst thing that comes crashing it down, right? It has nothing to do with, sometimes it has to do with just maybe personnel not gelling together, whatever. But most of the time, when things just there's this kind of slamming of the door, it's because someone gets hurt. And that's just the unfortunate truth in sports, and this happens to be one of those cases. So the Warriors, kind of have to sort of temper my expectations and also temper what what I'm hoping to get out of them for the rest of the season. And I'll still be, of course, watching basketball, but it definitely stings a bit. It definitely kind of it sort of sours things for me, unfortunately. It really does. It puts kind of a damper, and I just don't have the same, it just doesn't, I just don't have the same enjoyment when that kind of thing happens. You know what I mean? It just kind of sucks the air out of the building, right? I can't imagine what it was like being at Chase Center watching that. But I just, it's tough. It's tough. Anyways, there's basketball. There's more basketball out there. We're halfway through the season. We are absolutely in the dog days. I feel that, certainly. Me feeling pretty, checked out, not just because of what happened, but also just kind of feeling checked out overall from sports, honestly. I think it'll pick back up. I'll start to feel back into it once, All-Star weekend, like after All-Star weekend kind of rolls forward and we're in the thick of the playoff hunting days, and kind of really solidifying what teams are going to be competing for playoff spots. I think that's what will make it interesting again for me. So outside of sports, basketball, whatever, I have been playing 100-line defense. I played that quite a bit on my plane ride, and I got pretty far into it. I would say I have gotten past sort of the first section of the game. I don't want to give away spoilers if anybody is interested in playing, but you reach a certain point in the game, and then it becomes kind of you essentially kind of reach like a almost like a second chapter of sorts. It's pretty far in, but it's I'm very interested in seeing kind of what direction the story takes. There's a lot of like decision making and that kind of thing. There's a lot of you can definitely make some comparisons to things like 13 Sentinels, which I have already talked about, or even like Nier Automata, if you're familiar. I think that there's definitely some pretty clear similarities to that game in particular. So that's kind of interesting to see. I would say that it's just like this game, along with just being entertaining and just being intriguing, I think it does a really good job of being kind of this like page turner of sorts. I think after playing this game and something like 13 Sentinels, I absolutely understand the appeal of like a visual novel now. I think that as a literary style, there is something to it in which you kind of view the lens predominantly through character interactions, through kind of a POV narrator and that kind of thing. And that makes it pretty exciting. And it makes a lot of scenarios very interesting. You're trying to kind of piece things together. There's a lot of there's still a lot of mysteries that are left unsolved. So obviously I'll have to kind of continue making my way through the game to find out what is actually happening, right? So it's a very good, it does a really good job of leaving you on cliffhangers when it's like, I gotta keep going with the story, you know what I mean? And it's super fun. I think it's kind of, it mixes a lot of different types of genres together. Obviously kind of that sci-fi mystery box style of storytelling. There's kind of like a murder mystery thrown in there as well, which I think is There's some pretty clear callbacks to the creator of this game's all the previous games with the Danganronpa series, which maybe I'll play sometime in the future. Some kind of fourth wall breaks here and there with one of the characters in particular. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of references thrown in there, a lot of jokes, a lot of kind of trying to break some cliches and stuff like that. It's all really well wrapped up in this kind of fun package, right? I think it's very ambitious in what it's trying to do, and I can't wait to see kind of where these other kind of strands of stories go, and kind of where things are projected to go. And I can't wait to kind of uncover the kind of the other kind of major mysteries that hang over this game, because there's still some really big pieces that haven't been revealed yet. But overall, though, it's been a blast. I would say maybe my only minor gripe with this game is with the protagonist himself. He's not the most like interesting character. I think he functions well enough as kind of the POV, maybe, you know, just like placeholder for your character kind of thing. I just don't know. He's just not. I would say out of all of the characters, he is the least interesting character. He feels pretty, you know, maybe there's going to be more to him as the story progresses. Maybe more things are revealed, but for now, he's not very interesting. So I think that's like the only thing that is like, okay, maybe they could have given him a little bit more to kind of work with. Maybe a bit more of like a quirk than just kind of like JRPG hero character with a good heart, you know, that kind of thing. Like I think there might be a little bit more. Maybe I'm giving maybe I need to be a bit more patient with him, but yeah, so far he's probably the least interesting part of the story as kind of the, you know, POV character narrator sort of thing. The rest of the characters are very interesting, and just kind of what their backstories are, and, you know, the secrets that kind of get revealed about them as the story progresses. And yeah, I guess like my only other, I mentioned this when I first talked about this game. There is a calendar system, and I know that I'm not trying to be, you know, I don't want to be the guy that hates calendar systems or whatever because of Persona and Three Houses or whatever. I think this game in particular, I think this game does a better job of that, because it doesn't always, you're not always required to do interactions and that kind of thing, and you can easily skip past those, and it doesn't really affect too much of the story. Maybe it makes the gameplay a little bit more difficult because you don't have the necessary upgrades to upgrade certain characters and upgrade their skills or whatever. But I don't think it's to the same extent as something like Three Houses, where if you want to recruit a certain character, you have to spend a significant amount of time with them. If you want to upgrade or, you know, improve the affinities between two characters, like you have to kind of put them in the same party and, you know, have them, or put them in the same unit and have them fight together. Like there's not really that same type of social gameplay mechanics, which I'm fine, which I appreciate, honestly, because there's less busy work in that sense. So I don't really mind the calendar system in this game. And plus, you don't really need to do it all the time. It skips over some days as well when the characters are just like too tired and they sleep through the day or whatever. Or there's always something happening in this game. I feel like the pacing of this game is pretty well done. So there's not, even when there is kind of this free time, downtime period for you to do some of the customization with the characters, some of the social bonding things. It's really not this like whole, it's not like a huge gameplay aspect, right? I would say the biggest kind of gameplay styles is just reading through the text and then the battle system, which maybe maybe composes about like, I don't know, like 30% of the gameplay, honestly, or maybe even less than that. So it's not this huge, I don't know, it's not this like huge endeavor to, when it switches up gameplay styles like that. Um, a quick note on the combat. Combat's pretty. It's simple, but it's challenging enough to where you do have to think about placement and have to think about certain actions and that kind of thing. I would say again, similarity here. Pretty. You can make this comparison to 13 Sentinels, where the combat is really not all that complicated. It's not like this huge strategic. You don't have to be a huge strategic mastermind to try to figure things out. It just takes a little bit to be like, okay, maybe I need to use this character on this enemy and get some extra turn points or whatever, because you have limited turns in each battle, so you kind of have to use them wisely. You have to think about, okay, maybe it's worthwhile to sacrifice one character because that's going to benefit another character. So there's ways you can kind of strategize around that. I think having those limited play turns adds like a bit of, you have to add some thoughts into, how you want to move around your characters. So I think that's fun, and it's not at all. What is it? It's neither too stressful nor too kind of not too like free for all, too what is it, lackadaisical or whatever. There's not like this. There's not like a ton of like hand holding, which I think is good as well. I think, at least on like the normal difficulty mode. So I think that it works out in its favor, and I think the combat is actually pretty fun for what it is. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's been a great game. I'm excited to play more when I do have the chance to play, which, maybe I'll be able to sneak in a few hours tonight. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for today. Just wanted to do a bit of a catch up on some things, kind of where obviously, give some updates on some big NBA headlines, talk about what I've been playing, which has only really been one game. And yeah, just kind of moving forward what things are looking like. I don't know when the next time I'll be able to record is. I will try to shoot for this week if anything pops up. But yeah, that's going to do it for now. Anyways, this has been Safe the Semantics, signing off.